Hi there and welcome once again. I hope you're having a wonderful week. This is Gina from McGuire. So I have another gatefold card design for you today. This one, however, has a fun interlocking feature that makes them very unique. What's really special about them is just looking at the card, it looks like a simple gatefold design. But as you open it, you'll notice that the elements on the front interlock together. There are many ways to do this, and I have several examples for you today in hopes that one of them will inspire you to try it with a product that you may have. I will be showing several different size cards and different orientations, so you know what measurements would be needed for each. Let's go ahead with the first example. This is a square card. Now I thought it'd be best if I show you the card in action just so you can kind of see where we're headed. So you can see how that frame and the circle focal point interlock as you close the card. This makes for a unique gatefold design. This particular card is 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. To create this, you need two pieces of cardstock that are 5.5 inches by 8.25 inches. And we're going to score each of them at 5.5 inches. After we've scored these, we can go ahead and fold along those score lines. This will, as I mentioned, end up to be a large square card. If you're looking for different size cards, stay tuned because I will offer different options throughout this video. You can see how these two pieces will fit together to create a square gatefold design. I'm not going to glue these together just yet, but I will put tape on them just to hold them in place. I could glue them right from the beginning, but to be honest, I wasn't sure if I'd want to change anything, so I thought it was best to leave it as is. I'm using some temporary tape and a little bit of adhesive to keep them closed. I can later erase the adhesive so I don't have to worry about it leaving a mark. I like to use Altenew adhesive for this. You just need a little bit and it will rub away. If you use more and leave it, it will hold tight. Now for the background on this card, I'm using the Altenew Leaf Clusters stamp set. This is a new one that has won my heart. It'll be a favorite from this year because I think it's perfect for techniques and for backgrounds. Here's the little idea brochure that comes with the stamp set so you can see some of the ideas that they include. I'm just going to stamp these repeatedly on the front of our gatefold card with my MISTI stamping tool. You can definitely use an acrylic block for this, but I thought I would save time by using a stamping tool because I can stamp more than one image at a time. So I start in one corner and work my way across to the other corner, putting the images as close together as possible. Since this is the first time I've used these stamps, I like to prepare them for inking. The way that I've found recently is the best way to do this is to use a dry cloth. I'll link to the microfiber cloth that I use below. It's a great way to prep those stamps, and you'll see the surface of the stamp get a little bit cloudy, which means it's ready. So I've inked it up with Altenew Morning Frost ink, which is a nice light gray ink. And I'm going to stamp those images to cover the entire background. Along with that color of ink, I'll be using these color families from Altenew, and I'll actually use those same colors throughout the video. I like that Altenew has colors that come in light, medium, dark, and extra dark. You can buy them as cubes or as regular ink pads. It takes the guesswork out of knowing what colors go together. I'll be using some of these colors along with the Altenew Welcome Home stamp set for this first card. This is a building stamp set where you stamp those three images together to build what looks like a pattern paper in a circular form. And again, this large stamp set comes with the idea brochure so you can see how to layer the images together and also some card ideas included inside. I thought that cluster of flowers in a circle shape would be great in the center of the frame on our interlocking card. So I have white cardstock here in my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm starting with one of the circle images. I'm going to prepare this by rubbing it with my dry cloth, and then I'll ink that up with Coral Bliss ink. Then I'll come in with the second image and line it up following the guide that comes with the stamp set. This time I'm using olive ink, and then I'll come in with the third image and stamp that one with parrot ink. I love that with stamps like this, you can build your own pattern. It looks so cool and you can do it in any colors you want. Now for the frame on our interlocking card, I'm using the new Altenew Frilly frame die. I die cut this 3 times from white cardstock, and I'm gluing them together so it has some stability to it, some strength to it. I'm then using the same die to cut a circle from that stamped pattern piece that we just created. Now that all of our pieces are ready, it's time to assemble the card. So I can open up my two pieces here and remove the adhesive that I had put in there to hold the flaps down, and I'm using an adhesive eraser to do that. This next step is optional. You don't have to do this. I like to use a sanding block to smooth out our inside piece. It makes it just a hair smaller so that this interlocks with the frame nicely. You really don't have to do this, but I find it helps a tiny bit. Okay, now I'm going to hold my frame on the front of the card and put tape that lines up with the split in the gatefold. The only reason I'm putting that tape there is to mark where the halfway point is on my frame. I only want to put strong adhesive on the back of half of this. It will glue to the left flap on the front of our card. So that's why I'm putting adhesive only on that side. Once I have adhesive on the back, I'm going to go and put that on our card, lining up our tape because that lines up with that center line on the gatefold, and then hold it there until it dries. Again, there's only adhesive on the left-hand side. Once that's done, we can remove the tape, and you can see how the frame is hooked to the left flap of our card. Now I think it's time for me to glue the back and the front of our card together. So I'm putting adhesive on the large flap on the piece on the right, and then the other piece fits in it. And this way we end up with the card that's 5.5 by 5.5. Now on the center or the inside of the right flap, we're putting strong adhesive and then putting the inside piece in that. And again, you only want adhesive on the right flap. Now we have that interlocking feature. For the sentiment on this card, I used two Altenew products. I first used the Altenew Sentiment Strip Stamp Set, which is a new one. I like that these are all capital letters and there's a variety of sentiments in it. I'm also using the simple alphabet dies, which I've used many times in videos. I die cut the word hello from black cardstock 3 times and glued the letters on top of each other for nice dimension. I arranged the letters for hello on my work surface in a straight line, and then I placed a piece of tape on top so I could pick up the letters in the perfect arrangement. I put liquid adhesive on the back of each letter, picked it up with the tape, and laid it right onto my card in a straight line. This is a great way to get the perfect centering and arrangement and straight line for your individual letters. Once that was dry, I removed the tape, and I added a Praying For You sentiment strip right underneath it. I also added some yellow pearls to the flowers in the background. So here you can see the fun interlocking feature. It opens very easily. You can have your personal message inside. You could even stamp in there if you want to. And it closes easily too. I find this interlocking feature works great with square, circle, rectangle shapes, but you can try it with some other shapes if you'd like. I then will mail this in a 6x6 white envelope, which I'll link to below if you're looking for square envelope options. As I mentioned, I'm a fan of square cards, but it does require extra postage, so keep that in mind. Okay, my next example is a traditional 4¼ by 5.5 inch card design, and this time I'm using a frame background die as part of our interlocking feature. Here's a look at the completed card so you have an idea of the direction we're headed. There's a stamped rectangle on the right flap, and then that rectangle frame on the left flap. Okay, so I used the Altenew leaf frame die, which I've used in videos before. I die cut it 3 times from white cardstock, and I'm gluing them together. I find it best to stack your die cut frames so there's stability to it for this interlocking card design. Now this overall size of this frame is 4¼ by 5.5, so it'll cover the front of our card. I saved the white rectangle from the inside to stamp our flowers on. I used the Altenew Delicate Cluster Stamp Set. I was really excited about this stamp set because it has unique flowers in it. I picked one of the flower clusters and I'll stamp that on our rectangle that fits in the center of the frame. So let's start with the flower cluster. I've never used this stamp, so I wipe it off with a dry cloth first, and then I'll stamp that with the pink pearl ink. Now it's time to line up the second layer. Sorry, my head gets in the way, but the best way to line it up is to look over the stamp and look through to the image below. The second layer I did with Coral Bliss. This third layer I did with Heartbeat. And then the last one is the Vineyard Berry. Okay, now it's time to line up the stem, which I did with the Parrot ink. And then I am going around the edges with my sanding block. Again, you don't need to do this, but I find that it makes it a little bit smoother. Then I'm using the Altenew Obsidian black ink to stamp a sentiment. This is from that leaf cluster stamp set that I showed you earlier. This black ink is great for stamping super dark images. I then went in and added little dots to the center of each flower with a white gel pen. Now it's time to create our gatefold card. The overall size of this card when we're done will be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. To create a card like this, you need to start with a piece of cardstock that is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, and we're going to score 2 1/8 inches from both ends. You can see here on my scoring tool where the 2 1/8 inch mark is. I like the Scor-Buddy because there's a dot at that point, so it's easy to find. So I have my 2 score lines, and I'll fold along each of those, and you'll see the ends meet in the middle for our gatefold card. Okay, now it's time to do the interlocking feature. On the left flap, we're going to glue our frame. So remember, I want to make a mark at where the halfway point is, where the split in the card is. And I'm doing that mark with my pieces of tape, but you could use a pencil if you want to. So I'm only putting my strong adhesive to the side of that tape. Okay, so now we can take this and glue it onto the front of our card. And remember, the edges of this frame will line up with the edges of our card. I forgot to tape the flaps of my card closed temporarily. I just find this is helpful, but you could just use regular tape or you could leave it open if you wanted to. Okay, so after I put my frames down, it's time to put adhesive on the right flap in the center of the frame. And then onto that, we will glue our stamped image. And remember, our stamped piece will fit nicely in the center of that frame. So the key to this design is that the outside gets stuck to the left flap. The inside piece gets stuck to the right flap. So I'm removing my adhesive in the center with an adhesive eraser, and I added little pearls to cover up a little ink boo-boo that I had. Now we can see the fun interlocking feature. So if you have any kind of frame background dies, it works perfect for this. I like how this card design is unique. However, it's not too complicated looking. You still have that focal image of that flower in the center. That flower is beautiful and I want the attention to stay there. But it does have the fun surprise of the interlocking gatefold design. Okay, here is another example that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but it opens sideways. In this case, I used rectangle dies to create the frame for the interlocking feature and the piece on the inside. Many of us have stacking rectangle, square, or circle dies. They're perfect for this. So I picked out 3 dies that are close in size. The smallest die will be the one that we die cut to stamp on. Then the outer 2 dies will be the ones that we'll die cut together to create a frame. So I take those 2 larger dies, and on the back of them, I'm putting tape to hold them together so there's an even space between them on all sides. I then run that through my die cut machine with whatever color cardstock I want. And I actually die cut 3 pieces like this, so I would have 3 frames, and I glued them on top of each other for a stacked look, and so it was stronger, it had stability. Now I'm going to use this smaller die that I showed you to die cut from white cardstock, and we'll do our stamping on that piece. For my stamping, I'm using the new unbelievably beautiful Altenew Sunflower Daisy stamp set. These are so realistic looking. I only used a few of the images in the set. There are so many more. And the layering is very easy to line up. You can see some of the examples that are included in the brochure that comes with the stamp set. I'm just going to stamp the large flower and then some leaves around it. So onto that smaller rectangle, I'm stamping the yellow inks that I showed you before. I'm also going to stamp the bottom layer, the solidmost layer, onto a piece of masking paper. That's what I'm doing here. That way I can cut that out and have a mask for our flower. I'll place that over our flower stamped image, and now I can add some leaves to look like they're peeking out from the flower. So I'll stamp the base of the leaves first with my lightest ink, and then I will go and add the layers in the darker inks. I'm not going to show all of that here. It's very basic, and these are very easy to layer stamps, and the guide makes it effortless. I also stamped some background leaves using the Altenew Morning Frost ink that I showed you before. And there you can see our finished piece, so realistic looking. Now for the note card itself, we're going to start with a 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece of cardstock. This is Gina K. Whisper cardstock. And I'm scoring 2 3/4 of an inch from each end. Then when we fold along those score lines, we'll end up with a card that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and the two ends will meet nicely in the middle. Now remember earlier I die cut some green frames and I glued them together for some strength and stability. I'm just temporarily taping that at the center of our card, putting the tape pieces so that they line up with where the ends of our card meet in the middle. Now to only one side of this, I'm putting strong adhesive, only to the left side of the frame, and gluing it down so the frame is glued to the left flap. Once that is dry, I'll put adhesive at the center of the frame on the right flap and glue our stamped piece on that. So again, the piece in the center is glued to the right flap. The frame on the outside is glued to the left flap. So here is the finished card. I added some pearls and a sentiment from the Sentiment Strip stamp set from Altenew. And you can see how the pieces fit nicely together. Now when I open this, you'll see how the stamped piece goes to the right, the frame goes to the left, and they interlock nicely in the center. You could stamp in the middle, as I mentioned, but I like to leave a lot of room for a personal message. All right, next I thought I'd share with you an example of using circles for the frame and the element in the center. And this card features one of my favorite stamp sets from the year. This release has a few stamp sets that I just love, and I'm excited to use them. For this card, we're starting with a piece of cardstock that is 8 1/2 inches by 5 1/2 inches. Again, I'm scoring 2 1/8 of an inch from both ends of this piece. When we fold these ends in, they'll meet in the middle, and we'll end up with a gatefold card that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This time I'm stamping on my background with one of my new favorite Altenew stamp sets. This is the other one that I really like. This creates the most incredibly unique layered flowers, and they're very easy to line up. There's the solid image and then a dotted image that adds detail. There is a coordinating die set and masking stencil set available if you need it. So here's the guide that goes with it, and look at all the different looks that you can create with the set. You can use just the solid layers, you can use just the dotted layers, or you can use them together as I will be doing. So I have my white gatefold card in my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm starting by stamping the solid layers from that stamp set with the various colors that I showed you before. I'm starting with the lightest inks first. After I put down that solid base layer with the lightest ink, I will come in and line up the dotted layer, which is the second layer, and I'll stamp that with a slightly darker ink. So the first peach flower was pink pearl. This time I'm using Coral Bliss, and look at how magical that looks once you've stamped it. There are, of course, images to stamp in the center of the flower too, and I went ahead and did all of that stamping. This is one of those that you might as well mass produce while you're doing it, and I wish I would have because I love the results. Now I have 2 circle dies that are close in size, and I've taped them together, running that through my die cut machine to create a circle frame. I'll create 3 of these and glue them together for stability. Then I have a slightly smaller circle die that I arranged the letters for hello and stamped "You're amazing." Then I did the assembly like I've shown you many times. I've glued the frame to the left flap, the center element to the right flap, and then they interlock perfectly. I think what I like best about this card is that background. Those images are just gorgeous, and I have plans to use that set again in another video, and it'll definitely be on my favorites list for 2019. I know it's silly, but I get really excited when a unique stamp set comes out. Something different to play with is always fun. Okay, my last example also uses another fun stamp set, and this is a very graphic design. In this case, the overall card design is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, which is one of my favorite card sizes to make. And I'll link below to the envelope size I use for that. Okay, so for this one, I'm using the Altenew Pattern Power stamp set. This is another winning stamp set because look at all the unique looks that you get. So you take the one image and stamp it and then rotate it and stamp it again and rotate it, and look at these dimensional looking patterns that you can create. All of these are included in this stamp set. I'm excited to try that one in particular with lots of different colors. But for this card today, I'm going to use the triangle images that you saw at the top. This is one of those cases where I think it's very helpful to have the guide that Altenew provides with the stamp sets, because there are lots of ideas for using these unique patterns. Okay, so let's go ahead and stamp some of this. For this example, I'm using Pink Pearl, and then we have Coral Bliss, and then Heartbeat Red. So you stamp it once, then you take the same exact stamp and rotate it, line it up, stamp it with the medium color, then take the same stamp, rotate it, line it up, and stamp it with the darkest color. And look how dimensional that looks. Sorry my head gets in the way, but it's the best way to line up the images so they stamp perfectly. I'm absolutely crazy about this pattern, and you can make it bigger by just stamping the same images right next to it, lining up one of the sides. So after I did that, I went ahead and used a large circle die to cut this out. I then, as I mentioned before, used 2 larger circle dies, taped them together and cut them from white cardstock to create the circle frames. I created 3 of those and glued them together. Then I created one from gold foil cardstock and glued that on top. So we had a nice, thick, stable gold foil frame, circle frame, that would go on the front of our card. Okay, now for the card itself, you need to have a piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, and we're scoring 2 1/8 inches from each end. When we fold these together, the ends will meet in the center, and we'll have a card that is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches square. So I assembled this card as I have the others. I glued the frame to the left flap, and I glued the center element to the right flap so they interlock nicely in the middle. I also added the word hello using that same Altenew alphabet stamp set. I die cut 3 of each letter and glued them together for a stacked look. This is a very simple card design. You could make it for a masculine look if you wanted to, but by adding gold cardstock to the top circle frame, it adds a little bit of interest. All right, there you have a bunch of examples for creating interlocking gatefold cards. These are so much fun to make and a nice surprise for the recipient. If you're interested in any of the supplies that I use, I link them below in my YouTube description. But as always, I really encourage you to go to my blog because I have a lot of information there, and often I have lots of giveaways. In the middle are a couple other gatefold card designs. I appreciate you stopping by. I'm very thankful for the time that you spend here, and I hope you'll come back soon. Have a great day. Take care.